You might not know it, but Brian Keith Etheridge has been part of your TV life for over 2 decades. He's helped to create some of the best moments in TV history through his involvement as a writer and producer of great shows like Mike and Molly, The Mick, The Ranch, The Goldbergs, and most recently, The Neighborhood. We were first introduced to him as the best buddy of the everyman Matt in the reality show, The Joe Schmo Show. Today, he joins us to discuss that groundbreaking and vastly underappreciated gem. BK, first off, thank you very much for being a part of this interview. A lot of people, when we put out the Ralph Garman interview, are just all over this. They're very excited to hear from people. So thank you very much for your time.
Hey, it's my pleasure. My doors are getting kicked in for Joe Schmo interviews these days. So I'm glad I could squeeze this one in.
Awesome. Great to hear. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the Joe Schmo Show.
I had just barely gotten into writing for a living. I'd only had one other job. I was a classical musician for a living until I was 30. And then it's kind of a whole other story. I decided to go into comedy, and I had done stand-up and it had gone well. And off of that, I'd gotten a job writing on the show they were creating called Best Damn Sports Show, period. And I was on that, and I was like acting in sketches and writing. And I was like, oh, fuck, man, this writing thing is pretty good. It's like, because I was poor as shit. I was like living in an apartment with like 3 other comics and didn't have any money. And all of a sudden I had a job that had like health insurance and stuff like that. So when I left that, I got this random call about this show that was looking for like a junior writer. I remember it was something that's how it was couched to me with my agents, and the show had been sold. The concept had been sold, but it had not been picked up yet. And they'd already had a head writer, this guy, Michael Curtis, who had famously worked on Friends, and he was brilliant. And then, of course, the guys who created it, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who were just like, they get all the credit because they were way ahead of the curve on this thing, and they had come up with it, but they wanted to hire another writer, but they didn't have a huge budget because the show hadn't been picked up yet. So the production company, Stone Stanley, they put together some dough to hire like Michael Curtis as a writer and then me to put together a Bible that we would then pitch to Spike TV to see if they would buy the fucker. Because it was like, nobody knew, even when I heard it, I was just like, wait, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, we hadn't really, it was a very new idea. I can't emphasize that enough because now it's just so common. But this was like 2003, and really nothing like this was being done. And I'm not trying to say that to be like, hey, I walked on the fucking moon the first time, because it wasn't even my idea. I was just some asshole comic that was like floating around the city. I was just trying to make like $1,500 a week or whatever the hell they were going to pay me, And so I went in to meet with them, and there was a series of events that happened, Jeremy, that put me in the position that I was in. And it was both amazing and a little bit overwhelming, to be honest, because of the nature of the show. I came in as a junior writer, but when I started, the first like few weeks that I was there, Paul Wernick was gone doing, I think, Celebrity Get Me Out of Here. He was like a producer on that show. So he's off like trying to, he's working, trying to make a living. And then Michael Curtis, who had all these amazing credits, was off on some other show and couldn't join us for like a few weeks. I forget how long it was, but it was definitely like 2 or 3 weeks. So when I showed up, it was mainly me and Rhett Reese at the very beginning. And Rhett was fucking, I don't know if you met Rhett. Rhett and Paul are great guys. And Rhett, I bonded with right away. He's the first guy I really connected with there. And he's so modest and he's such a good guy. And then I was just completely out of control. You know, it's like I had this terrible, like the raunchiest sense of humor. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't really a professional writer, so I was just liable to say anything, which will come up later when we talk about Kristen Wiig, if we get to that. So I get on the show, and Rhett and I just had a chemistry, at least I thought. So we wrote a whole bunch before anybody showed up. And we really, I think, got a good foothold on what they wanted the show to be. And I think I kind of was on the same page with them very quickly. And the core of that same page is this guy's got to be the hero. Like both Rhett and I, and everybody, as more people, more talented people pile in, it may or may not seem like it. I have not seen the show since we did it, but I hope what comes across is that every single person that worked on the show that I knew, their chief focus was, let's make this guy a hero. Let's not just destroy someone. You know, that wasn't the point of the show. And there were parts that kind of got out of control where we were, I'm sure they have it in the behind the scenes. We were like, holy shit, man, what do we do here? Because we're dealing with a human being. But at that stage, it was just like, let's come up with these funny characters. Let's write, you know, and everything was pretty much written out in terms of the storylines. They were very intricately written out. Speeches were written out. Like I wrote tons of speeches. And then eventually this guy, John Hallamore, came on, and he's fucking hilarious, man. He's so funny. And he contributed to everything writing wise, but he mostly was doing Ralph Garman stuff. You know, like he's the one who came up, in my memory, with ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And I just remember going, dude, that's the funniest thing that's ever been written. Like, I mean, it was so, I was mostly doing the character and the story stuff. I was mostly focused on that. And I think he may have written all of Ralph's stuff. I mean, I might have had a few jokes in there or something, but my memory is that John just crushed that so hard right off the bat, where it's like, okay, you're the guy. When we started auditioning people, because I had taken classes at the Groundlings, which is where Kristen and those guys come in, they had me auditioning with people, just reading with them on a couch. And I was fortunate that the executives at Spike TV went, oh, we should have this dude, Brian, be on the show. When I got brought in, it kind of snowballed for me in a positive way. And a lot of it happened because I didn't know what I was doing. I was auditioning with everybody. They were at an audition, but I was just at work. So I was totally loose. You know, if the roles had been reversed, I would have been nervous and in my head, but I wasn't. I was just at work. It's like I just ate a roast beef sandwich, and then I come in and I'm doing a scene that I helped write with someone. So it was just no pressure on me. So then I got cast in the show, and by that time, I had kind of like a bit of a foothold on the creative side, thanks to Rhett and Paul and those guys letting me kind of run amok with some ideas. And then, you know, I'm going to forget to give credit to a ton of people, but I just want to say out loud, the people who did the games on the show, there was a whole department that did the games. All the writers, the producers, the director, Danny Salas, like, man, it was, there's so many talented people on that show, and everybody's heart was in the right place to a person, is my memory. And that's it kind of like we struck gold. We just kept striking gold. You know, with Matt, we struck gold, and the people they put together were just awesome. I mean, life-changing for me to be around these people.
So writers are sometimes overlooked when you're looking at the grand scheme of a show, not for, you know, people who are in the know, but for people who are just watching it. Are there any planned moments in this Joe Schmo show that you feel like a sense of ownership of, like not in a dick way, but in a that worked out exactly as I was expecting it to kind of way?
Man, there were so many. There were so many. First of all, we wrote a lot of stuff, but we were in the house like 12 hours a day with this guy, and so the actors on the show and the other people involved, there's a whole team of people going, okay, shit, we got a problem. You know what I mean? And we'd go gather, and solutions would come from everywhere. But, I don't want to like undervalue. There's no way to overvalue how talented the cast was and how great they were at getting from point A to point B and really sticking to the story. So there were so many, great moments. One of the lines that Hornsby and I are still I'm still really good friends with a lot of people from the show, but Hornsby and I have stayed really close friends. At least that's my version of it. His version may be, I can't get rid of this guy.
Well, I'll check with him when we chat.
Yeah. But Hornsby has stayed one of my dearest friends, and we often talk about a few things on the show. One of them is, we did that thing the night where we were in the jacuzzi and we played this game where everybody's saying nice things about each other. And that was planned, and people mostly had an idea of what they were going to say, but it really became like people kind of speaking from the heart with a couple of jokes, peppered in there. And the whole plan there was to get, in my memory, was to get David's character, the Hutch, to turn Matt to like him, right? To show a softer side, right? And then I had written a line that, remember, like, I think it was like later that night or something, or like the next day or whatever, we had like a talent contest, I think. And the Hutch won. I think he sang like the Star Spangled Banner or something.
He did.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember he's so funny. And then after he gets the robe, I had written a line that's probably my favorite thing I wrote, where he turns around and goes,
"Congratulations."
FYI, I pissed in the whirlpool last night.
Oh, man.
Nice.
Asshole.
Shut up.
it was one of my favorite moments. My memory is that I wrote that line, and Hornsby and I have talked about it. If you talk to him and he says he improv'd it, then I'd say I don't think he did, but maybe he did. I'm pretty sure that was a line I wrote. But that was one of the funniest moments to me, because he's just like, the Hutch is always going to be the Hutch, which whenever we nail a character like that, and some of those characters we really nailed.
Oh, and the Hutch was perfect.
He's so
exactly
good.
Perfect. So the first season of Joe Schmo was kind of your first real. You've done some work with Groundlings. You've done some sketches. I should say sketches, not skits, because there's a difference. Sketches on the Best Damn Sports Show. But this is the first time that you're immersed as a character. What was that like? What was that experience like for you?
I mean, it's indescribable, because honestly, I'm not really an actor. Like when I went to Groundlings and stuff, it was so funny. It's like, I made it, for people who don't know the Groundlings, like, you take these levels of classes and it's very difficult to move up. It's even more difficult now. And eventually, if you get through all the classes, you get into a thing called the Sunday Company, where you perform there every Sunday. And then out of that pool of people, it takes years to get there. And out of that pool of people, they vote on who gets to become a Groundling, right? And there's tons of famous Groundlings, like, for our purposes, like Kristen Wiig, Will Ferrell, Melissa McCarthy, the list. I invite anybody in LA, go see the Groundlings, because if you go see a show, I promise you're going to see people that are going to be stars, like, in the next 6 months to a year. I mean, the list is just, it's like an all-star team of comedic actors. So, but honestly, I made it into the Sunday Company, and it was a miracle, because I couldn't do any characters. Like Kristen could do 4,000 different characters and voices. And every sketch I wrote at the Groundlings was some version of me getting dumped by a girl. You know, it was like, I mean, I could write a sketch, you know, and I could write funny lines for other people, and I would just squeak by, you know, and so I was never really an actor. So, and when Joe Schmo came along, when they asked me to do it, I was scared because I didn't know what was going to be on the other side of this. But I think all of us, especially that were there from the very beginning, we all had a bit of a pit in our stomach. I don't want to speak for everyone. I had a pit in my stomach, and my memory is that other people felt a similar fear, like an excitement, but also like, hey, this is a real person. And sometimes people look at a show and they go like, oh, these guys just did this thing. It's like, well, it's like a lobster in a pot, you know. It's like you start off just, oh, this is a cool idea, and then what if these characters are there? And it just kind of builds and builds until now, to answer your question, I'm in the moment, I'm walking to this house and I'm like, can I do this?
I'm sure Matt was nervous. When I pulled up, I saw him fidgeting, rubbing his hands together, and I'm thinking, you think you're nervous? Try being in my shoes, pal.
You know, like on every level, do I have the skill to do it? And, you know, is it the right thing to do? And I had told them early on, I'm like, I have to use my real name and I have to be a real person to him, because my job was to obviously to get him to vote, not vote me out. That was supposed to be the emotional climax of the show, is that he was going to be, he was going to have a choice. And this had happened on Survivor or something already, where a person had been approached and said, look, you can vote out, like in our case, the asshole or the bitch, right? But if you vote out Brian, he's going to split your vote. So if you vote him out, then all you have to do is beat the two people on the show that everyone hates, right? That was all by design. So my job was to kind of shepherd him through this and be his friend. And in the end, get him to choose our friendship over, you know, the money. And he did. You know, and it's like, I get choked up thinking about it now. I mean, he went in, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he went into a private interview and he said some version of, I don't care about the money, I'm not going to vote my friend out. I mean, I'd known this guy for a week, really. I mean, I met him during his auditions, which was a brilliant idea. I don't know who came up with it. I can't remember, but I had met him earlier at his audition. I was the only person in the house that he knew coming into it. So that was like very emotional for me and for both of us. And I was constantly, my memory is that I was just constantly in my head going like, how do I execute this, but also have a net under him that he doesn't know? And I think a lot of people felt similar things. If you see how they react to him on the screen and behind the scenes, I know for fucking sure, because I mean, Rhett and Paul and I, and other people that were in that tight-knit group, you know, John and you know, Ralph sometimes would be in there, the director. I mean, there were nights, we were all very emotional, that we were crying our eyes out, you know, I don't know how much of that made it onto the show, but I remember a few incidents where we were out in front of the house crying. And one where Paul doesn't like, he wasn't like the most affectionate guy always. I remember one time I went to walk away and he pulled me back and gave me a hug because we were all just like, what the fuck are we doing here? So in terms of the acting, Jeremy, I was not prepared for what I was going into. I was flying by the seat of my pants and depending on everybody around me to be hilariously funny. So I could just try to survive and keep this guy, you know, kind of in the ball game.
Did you have a whole fuck I just messed up moment? Like for Ralph, it was saying Cammy's name and Taste My Treats challenge in season
I
2. Franklin Jones is the aftermath of these drawers. Which Kristen Wiig, somebody on so the show is on YouTube. I don't know if you know that. So the show is up on YouTube and it has hundreds of thousands of views. Now they say that with that Kristen Wiig didn't necessarily cover very well for him, but she covered as someone who's been on both sides. She covered so good.
Let me just interject there. It's like, I know I'm sorry, I'm rambling about stuff, but first of all, like, look, I can't over exaggerate this. Trust me and take me out of it, because I just kind of played a version of myself and kind of skated by and was funny when they needed me to be funny. But look, there's a handful of people on earth that can do what these actors did. I mean, people can do it. I'm not saying they're like, you know, but this is like, these are like Cirque du Soleil level improvisers. So trust me, when you're in the moment, and what people don't see, even with the behind the scenes, I mean, there's millions of dollars at stake. There's dozens of people working on the show. We've been working on it for months. There's houses have been rented, you know, camera equipment. There's games have been, I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on with all the people who've worked on this show. And any of those actors in the house at any moment could, it's like a game of fucking human Jenga, you know, at any moment. And we're talking about like, you're just with them all fucking day. You can never slip up. And when a mistake comes, trust me, because I've been around a lot of actors and who are super talented and people who are great at improv. Trust me, someone good at improv, someone good would shit their pants down to their fucking socks if they had been sitting in her position in that moment with this guy saying this thing, and all of a sudden the whole show is hanging by a fucking thread. It's like I think it's great when people debate things online and talk about it. But let me just say, it's like, there's a small group of people on earth that could have righted that ship. And we had one of them. And I'll tell you a story about her in a minute when we get to her. But like, yeah, that's improv beast mode right there. I mean, it's all of us were like, oh, thank God we had Kristen Wiig. Because we would have been fucked sideways. But I don't remember. I'm sure I fucked up multiple times a day, is my guess. If you went back and watched the footage, there were probably many, many times where I would go, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that, or I probably shouldn't have done that, you know. But nothing sticks out as like, I mean, that thing with Earl was just like, I mean, it's just, he's like, you know, 12 inches from the guy's face and doesn't know what underwear he was wearing. I mean, it's not like they were like, oh yeah, I had the black underwear. It was like the only underwear with a giant fucking fish
on it.
Yeah. So it was like, that was,
and he recovered well too. He just, but I didn't have my glasses, so I thought the elves were fish.
He did great, and yeah, he did great. But man, I know everybody's going to talk about Kristen because she's the one who kind of went on and to superstardom. I'm going to say this in the most delicate way because I think people will be interested in it. Spike TV had, you know. Spike TV is kind of like, they were launching at that point around that time. And their thing was like, and you know, times are different now, but at that time, their thing was like, basically, for lack of a better term, they were like going to be the tits and ass network. You know, they were going to be like, so, and I wrote a couple things for them and they were fucking great to me. So this isn't to disparage them at all. They were in a moment, they were looking for their kind of slice of the pie. And they went, let's do a fucking thing for dudes. And some of the stuff they did, like I wrote a thing for them. It was called Men's Health Minute. And it was sponsored by some famous men's magazine. I can't remember. And we had like Jason Sehorn, the football player, would come up. And for like a minute, he would talk about like, I wrote like 50 of these things, these little interstitials that were like, hey man, here's the best way to shave without getting stubble. Here's the way to prevent colon cancer. Here's how a man should. So, they did a lot of good stuff as well. But I think even they would admit in hindsight now that they're kind of focused on this kind of, let's have hot women in bikinis. Let's have women on trampolines. And look, we were all laughing about it at the time, and we're all swept up in it, and nobody's, was trying to act like we weren't participating in that. But very early on, after they'd asked me to act on the show, we were auditioning people. And I'm not going to say any names, but Kristen auditioned and crushed it. And I knew Kristen because we were in class at Brownlings together. And I immediately went to my manager and said, Kristen Wiig and Mikey Day were in my class. And I wrote with them a lot. And they were just monsters. I mean, from the first second you saw them, it was just so obvious that they were better than everybody. I would bring in funny sketches, and their worst sketch was better than the best thing I'd ever written in my life. I mean, and then they would get on stage and perform it, and it was just like they were in another stratosphere. And Kristen, I was totally in awe of her from the very first day that I saw her. I mean, just creatively smitten with her on every single level. And she auditioned and fucking crushed it. And we were building that. My memory is that we were building that Dr. Pat character around her. I'm like, she'll fucking kill this. And me and, and Rhett and Paul and John, the other guys were like, we were laughing our ass off with that character and really saw her. And Spike, a very high level executive at Spike, was like, look, we love Kristen. Kristen's really funny. She doesn't totally fit the kind of look that we're going for, right? And, they were going for more like Molly, blonde hair, Melissa, who's obviously gorgeous. They're all gorgeous. Gina, and Kristen's gorgeous as well, but she didn't have that look that they were going for, which was like, it's just a very specific vibe that the network was going for. And I had a conversation that I could never have later in my career because I was smart enough to know it was a dumb conversation. And I basically said, like, look, we have to be in the house with this guy. I'm not going to do the show if Kristen's not doing it. I'm not going to act. I'll write, but I don't want to act in the house if Kristen's not going to be on the show, because we would have been doomed. Like, we needed people to carry this thing. Okay, we couldn't just go for looks. Like, this wasn't. We couldn't do 1,000 takes, And you saw it's like, and the people that we got were just hyper talented. And I watched some of Ralph's thing, and he brought up a thing about the other mall. And what's funny about that is, I believe, I don't remember what combination of people came up with the idea. I think it was Hornsby and Lance, and it might have been Kristen, but they actually came to me early on. And me, Lance, Kristen, and Hornsby had a very loud meeting at this place. I think it was at the Pig and Whistle in Hollywood with the producers at Stone Stanley, and said, I believe it was him. And they were like so excited about this idea. And I was going to write it with Lance and David and Kristen. And so I actually wrote up a pitch, and we went and pitched it to Spike. And attached to it was Kristen Wiig, Lance Crawl, and David Hornsby all acting on the show, and then me and those guys writing it. Look, we've all gone on to, you know, have decent careers. You know, those guys way bigger, you know. But even me, it's like I've pieced together a decent little writing career. I've sold a number of shows. Like it was a good team. I was the least talented, but it was a very good team. And they passed. So then I sold the show to Fox, and I said, you know, those guys wanted to move on with the other mall. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, go for it. And Fox ended up buying it. But I remember later saying, like, you know, if I were at Spike TV, I would have a very long conversation with the person who passed on that package, and that had, forget about me, that had Kristen Wiig, David Hornsby, and Lance Crawl attached. And this is going to sound awful, but to me, if you can't see their talent, you're in the wrong business. I mean, it's that simple, you know. And it's like, I worked on these Chuck Lorre shows, and I know he's polarizing figure or whatever. I learned a fucking ton. The guy's a beast when it comes to half-hour sitcoms, but his casting instincts are unbelievable. One of his talents is he knows when people are stars. And you got to know that those guys are stars.
On YouTube, there's a kind of a 6-minute, I think it was put together for the other mall. And it is basically, it's The Office before The Office in regards to just how it was formatted. Ralph Garman is basically like, he's a Michael Scott type character. And,
he's great.
And of course, you know, you've got that cast that you're mentioning, and the premise is believable. And there's so much room, especially in a mall. There's so much room for stories there and everything. So I'll put the description or link in the description so that everybody can see kind of what was missed out on, what could have been.
Yeah, especially at that time. Also, keep in mind that, like, now people are like, who the fuck's going to a shopping mall? But back then it was like where I grew up, there was the good mall, there was the shitty mall that was going out of business. It's like a lot of us had that experience, and those guys came up with the idea. I just came in to try to get it over the plate at Spike TV because, you know, we all had good relationships there. So I think that show would have been a massive hit with those guys.
I agree.
Too talented to fail, those guys.
Now, going back to the show, in Master Debater, we got to see the most of your character, and that was not a rare occurrence for you on the show. You took one for the team a few times. So how was that moment discussed in the writer's room? And were you the first one just to step up and say, Lance had already gone full Monty in the first episode, and then the rest of the nudity was pretty much left to you?
Well, it's Brian versus Matt. Why don't you guys get up there? Brian versus Matt.
Can we say no ball sack in this one?
I get into the finals and I'm thinking to myself, where does a fella go once he's gone nut knuckle in the semifinals? You know what I mean? The roof is only so high when it comes to what a fella can do with his testicles and in a debating game.
Brian, you'll start, and here's your topic. Okay. Reality shows, innovative TV or mind-numbing crap? Reality shows are innovative TV because that's time.
Oh, my
That was in the final.
4 seconds you started laughing, Brian. 4 seconds as he nuzzled your teat.
Get that robe ready, baby.
Matt, you are defending reality shows, mind-numbing crap.
We get to the final round and I'm like, I gotta shift this thing into 5th gear, man, or burn my clutch out trying to do it.
Oh, God.
Brian will be distracting you, and we will start timing you when you start talking.
Oh, no. Good God.
Reality shows are without a doubt mind-numbing crap.
When Brian dropped Trow, oh my God. I saw parts of him that I don't ever want to see again.
I had my nutsack and my never you mind wedged squarely between this man's shoulder blades, and nothing. Nothing. He kept talking as if a nude man on his back was as comfortable as aftershave in the morning.
Reality shows. Have you ever seen Tina Weston? Have you ever seen Sabrina? Have you ever seen Fear Factor? They just won this game.
Yeah, I think he beat you.
I remember a moment where I think I jumped on Matt's back, totally naked. Is that the moment?
That's the moment.
Um,
And he got down on a knee to look at you, like you had dropped trowel, and
Yeah.
instead of going away, he went down on a knee and just stared right at your jug.
I totally forgot that. I don't remember if we wrote that moment or if I was just like, because I remember during the thing where when Lance got nude in the beginning and like the underwear contest, I think it was.
Yeah.
I remember in that moment going, hey, we got to pull Matt out of his shell. So we have to go further in order for him to kind of know where the bar is. So I remember in that one, I remember dancing around on like a thong and trying to be all sexy because I was like, I wanted Matt to do it. And then of course, Matt, who picks up on every cue, did it. So my guess is in that moment, it's like, you know, we're always trying to do something outrageous that serves a few different purposes. One is, and I know, I'm sure this has been talked about, is that at the core of it was spoofing reality shows. You know, like obviously the Hutch was Puck from the real world. And, you know, there was all these kind of, you know, characters that we were making fun of. And we were also attempting in our crude way to make a commentary on where this was heading. And again, that's credit to like Rhett and Paul, especially, who I think had a vision early on of like the kind of potholes of reality shows. So in a moment like that, that's one thing where we're trying to go like, look, eventually people are just going to be jumping on each other naked. You know, I mean, because like, what else do you do? Like, you got to top whatever the last show did. And then also it was just like pushing the boundaries of Matt, you know, and finding out what was this guy going to put up with? You know what I mean? It's like, I remember when we came up with the dog shit moment, we were just sitting around going, what's the worst thing what's the worst thing we could ask him to do? You know, and I can't remember which one of us said it, but I'm sure we all agreed instantly. It's like, that's making me to play the dog shit, because it's like, we'd all seen Fear Factor or whatever show, Survivor, where they're eating. So I think in that moment, I can't remember if he wrote it or if it was just spontaneous in the moment where we're just trying to do crazy reality show shit and pull him out of his shell, you know, and push it, not where he figures it out, but where he's like I think he says at one point, this place is driving me fucking insane.
This place is fucking starting to drive me crazy.
I was so worried about him all the time. I'm sure everybody was, but I felt a tremendous amount of responsibility and probably guilt too, that every conversation I had with him was getting deeper in a sense, you know. And I know Earl's character had that too, where they had kind of a heart-to-heart early on. So there were a few moments after the Dr. Pat injury. I remember Matt and I talked about this after the show personally. I think it was after Dr. Pat got injured. We had a dinner and Rhett and Paul pulled me aside, and it was a dinner with like me and Matt and Hornsby, I think. And Rhett and Paul were like, Matt was in a dark place. And we had a dinner. I think it was part of a competition we'd won. And they pulled me aside and they said, dude, just be as funny as you can at dinner.
Brian came to dinner and was fully willing to admit that he had had his earlier release that day, like I had predicted.
I'm like the Malcolm X of masturbation in here. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that grossing you out?
And Matt came out of his shell and was laughing. It was like three dudes being knuckleheads. And after the fact, Matt and I went to the Playboy Mansion the night after we wrapped for a party. And he goes, dude, I was wondering, because all of a sudden at dinner, you were like the funniest guy I ever met. And then the rest of the time you were just like being my friend. And I'm like, yeah, we were worried you were going to quit. So me and Hornsby were like, all right, let's make this fucker laugh real quick, try to cheer him up. But I don't know, all that, the nudity and a lot of that stuff is like, I think a lot of it was just in the moment and just us going nuts for this guy.
Yeah. We got to see snippets of your friendship with Matt, but not to the extent it seemed that you two became friends at the end. So what was happening off camera?
Well, off camera, it's like, I mean, a lot of this stuff would be on camera, but it's not going to make the cut.
It there.
Yeah, because it's like, well, also it's like, I went off to do another show right after that and then came back for season 2. So I wasn't actually in editing, which is when they surprised me when they blurred out my nipples at one point.
Tawny Madison's completely nude, even in the uncut. She's completely nude, and you in episode 5.
Yeah, that was JMO. That was John Holland Moore and Brett Reese and Paul like fucking with me, like because I have a memory of them just going, dude, we did something. You're either gonna hate it or love it. I laughed my ass off because they blurred out my fat ass nipples, but yeah, there were lots of moments with Matt, with everybody, not just with me, with everyone, where you'd just be sitting around talking about stuff. And that's why like we had to weave. That's the other thing. People are like, oh, Kristen didn't handle this moment. We got all these actors got like a dossier of who they were and a deeper backstory than you ever see in the show, because it was like a choose your own adventure. We don't know what this guy's going to ask, right? But anything he asks, you have to remember, do you have an aunt and uncle? Do you have a brother and sister? What's your favorite color? What was your first car? Where did you go to high school? Who was your best friend? What kind of ice cream do you like? I mean, just anything and everything. And you got to remember it. I mean, because we saw right off the bat what happens when you don't remember what fucking underwear you put on, right? So it doesn't take, people forget you are right in somebody's face. I mean, you're looking at them in the eye and you're talking about stuff and you don't know where the fuck a conversation go. 1 minute you're talking about, whatever's for dinner. And the next minute you're talking about, a birthday party where you rode go-karts when you were 7. Well, then like 4 days later, Matt is a sensitive guy. He's going to remember that. And then you're going to go like, what are you talking about go-karts? I've never been on a go-kart. Really? Because you just told me 2 days ago was your best birthday party ever. Oh yeah, that's right. So it's like, we would have all these conversations. And for me, right or wrong, my kind of battle cry from the beginning for my character was, I have to just tell him the truth. There has to be somebody in this house that the bottom doesn't fall out of, that he can know that, yeah, that's how many brothers I have. Yeah, that's where I was raised. Yeah, that's how I feel about pineapple on pizza.
Matt, are you an actor? Everything I told you about my life and my family and me is all true. Everything is true.
Maybe that wasn't a big deal, but for me, it was that was a big deal. So we had many, many, many conversations, just like everybody else did, about just nothing. And those are the conversations that don't always make the air, because look, you got Kip being fucking insanely funny constantly, and Hornsby and Dr. Pat and the rest of the crew like doing this hilarious stuff. You only have 44 minutes. You're filming 12 hours or whatever, 24 hours for an episode, whatever it is. You're going to cut out that stuff. So that's why I think maybe when people watch it and they're like, I don't know how they feel, but if they're like, wow, these guys are getting pretty emotional over this guy, it's like, yeah, well, you didn't see that they sat for 2 hours and talked about like his uncle who died of cancer or whatever. I mean, that wasn't part of the show, but I'm just saying you had conversations like that, like you do with people. And I went on to work in reality shows for a while after this. And I discovered a couple of things before I transitioned to scripted. A few things. One is, I don't want to fucking do this. 2 is things kind of went to, they misinterpreted to where they're like, oh, let's just be mean on camera, which is not sophisticated to me and not interesting and just doesn't feel good. The third thing I learned is very important, is that people will eventually be themselves. There's no way around it. And all the casting directors know this. If someone is a hothead, they're going to end up blowing their top. They can fake it for a day or two or a week or whatever, but eventually you're just going to be who you are. When you're around people, it's very intense. You feel like there's camera people around and microphones and lights, and you're in a bubble when you're on these shows, even as an actor, where you know that it's all fake. And you bond very quickly. So when people watch shows like Bachelor or whatever else, they're like, why the fuck are they getting so upset? They met this guy like 8 minutes ago. I say the same thing, but I also sort of get it, because it's you against the world. And by you, I mean this small group of people that are in this fishbowl together. And for Matt, he got that full experience. So he bonded with us because we were the people that like went overboard on a ship, and we were the circle of people that were floating out in the ocean together while everybody was looking in and not attacking us, but everybody was trying to film us, and there's food people and there's people setting up games, and it's very otherworldly. So it causes you to bond with those people, that shared experience. It's like, it's like if people get kidnapped at a bank robbery, they're together for like 45 minutes, but they never forget it, because there's only, 9 other people or whatever in the whole world that went through that Matt went through. And by the end, he realized he was the only one who went through it. He was alone. But in that moment, we were the only people he could relate to on earth. He couldn't talk to his best friend about those experiences because his best friend had never had them. So we bonded quickly and had so many, countless conversations. Everybody, even with people like Ashley the bitch and the Hutch, there were moments where they had like tons of real conversations about things, and I want to emphasize that because the show's hilariously funny to me, but the best part of it to me is the emotional part. That's why people are watching it. I think it's the emotional journey that's the most powerful part of it. The jokes are hilarious, the characters are great, but it's like seeing what he went through and what we all went through, to me, was the part that locked everybody in.
There is a Broadway star whose name is Matt Kennedy Gould. And obviously that's not Matt.
Yeah.
Can we just put to bed, you've been part of the show, so and the network doesn't exist, so there's no one to sue you if you lie or if you tell the truth or whatever. Matt Kennedy Gould is a real person, was never in on it.
Matt Kennedy Gould is 100% a real person that was never in on it, that we struck fucking gold with. And part of the reason why we struck gold with them is that, look, again, I'm not just saying this because of these guys, because Rhett and Paul went on to have they went a totally different trajectory. I haven't worked with them since season 2. These guys are geniuses, like literally. And they put together, with Stone Stanley and the whole crew and the casting department, a process that was extraordinary to find this guy. They went all over the country interviewing people. They took a crew out, they interviewed people, they a bunch of people applied to be on the show. We narrowed it down to whatever, 8 guys or 10 or what, I can't remember how many. And we brought them out to LA, and we had like, I want to say like, I'm going to get this totally wrong, but we had extensive personality tests that were like CIA level tests, like to find out who these people were, like what would they do under pressure, and we did little experiments. Like one of the things we did with them, I don't know if this made the show or not, but we like put them in a hotel room alone with a woman. They were supposed to draw. They were like, okay, you're going to go in this hotel room and you're going to sketch. We're going to you're going to sketch something. And then we send in like a model that's like in lingerie or nude or something. And they have to, and we're just trying to see, like, left to their own devices with, cameras in the rooms, what are they going to act like? Like, are they going to be a creep? Or, and again, it was a slightly different time, but it was, we did a lot of things to figure out how we could predict his behavior, in certain situations. Like when Kip was getting picked on, like a perfect example was we did some game by the pool and these hot women, we did a thing where Kip couldn't swim, right? And fucking Lance, unbelievable. And Kip, we did a thing where Kip couldn't swim. And one of the girls off script, because they don't know it's a fucking fake show. We just traipse it because it was Spike TV. They're like, how do we get girls in bikinis every episode? So we're sitting around trying to come up with games and like, well, okay, we got a pool, So one of the girls started making fun of Kip.
Okay, I get it.
One of the girls said something about, what is that, fake? Is it stupid? And everybody's heart kind of jumped in our throats.
I get it.
Hey, no. You can't swim.
Matt said that. Thank God.
All right, Kip, you've already passed the time to beat. Maybe we can pull him in with Jamie.
The model thought it was funny that Kip couldn't swim, and I think that's rude. Kip tried to hang on to her raft, and she tried to paddle away, but I just think that's mean to do to somebody.
And Matt went on a tirade.
Doing?
In the deep end.
She's like trying to get away from him.
She doesn't know. Hang on,
She
give him a
can go
hand.
fucking
Give him
fuck
a hand,
herself.
Hutch.
She's got it.
She's not even good looking, so fuck her.
It never ceased to amaze me how he kept sticking up for what he viewed as the downtrodden.
Off script, just on her own. Like, just, she was being an asshole and kind of bullying him. And Matt, like, basically turned to me and said, I'll fucking kill her, and used words that you cannot use on TV. And he was furious. And it's like, we kind of knew that's who he was. And so I'll say, I mean, anybody who thinks that guy was an actor, or it's just like, I don't know what to tell you. There's people who think the earth is flat also. This guy was, or is, an absolutely extraordinary human being with a really big heart. And he's just naive enough that you pull for him, but you don't go like, oh, the guy's an idiot, because he's not. He's really smart. He's a good person. And good people are gettable. And his default was trust. And his default was, I mean, right off the bat, when he kind of slipped up, I remember he said something like he outed Kip early. And he went to him and apologized.
Hey, dude, I wanted to say, when I said you're gay before, don't get pissed.
I think Matt definitely felt bad. I mean, you can tell Matt was just really sincere when he said it.
Just so you know, I'm an ally, bro.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I was just, it's like you never know. When
Dude,
you walk
yeah,
in.
I'm an ally. Just so you know that, for real.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, great. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for saying that too.
Yeah,
you didn't
man.
have to do that.
Yeah.
I already forgot about
When I said that, I was like, dude, he's gonna think I'm an asshole. And the way you looked at me, but the reality of it is I'm down with it. You know what I mean?
Fine, that's fine.
Cool.
I was just a little,
Cool.
just a little
Yeah,
nervous.
I know.
Okay.
But I really think that he appreciated me talking with him, and we're golden now.
Person to person, he went and said, like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. I shouldn't have said it. But I remember he said something like, I'm an advocate. And it's like, now that's like, well, yeah, that's what everybody says. In 2003, guys from Pittsburgh weren't necessarily, in droves going to gay guys in LA going, hey, man, I'm an advocate on television in front of everybody. it doesn't get me angry when people don't say he's a real guy, but he went through so much, and we went through so much, but he went through so much. To just snatch that away from him is, it's a bit of a bullshit move on people's parts. And it really, like, it demeans him, I think. Not to be too dramatic about it, but he's a real dude. He went through a real experience that was like, to this day, who knows if we did the right thing. He's an adult, he signed away his rights like we all did. But, in the end, did it make his life better? And I was there for the aftermath when he came out to LA and tried to do the groundlings and be an actor. And he actually, I told him not to do it, which got him mad at me, but we patched it up. But yeah, of course he's fucking real. Are you kidding me? Yeah, go look him up in fucking Pittsburgh. He was working at UPS. I mean, he's like, yeah, he's fucking real as it gets. Nothing big.
Are you still in touch with him at all today?
I have not. We were in touch. I don't know the last time I talked to him, to be honest. It's been years. We were in touch right after the show. We were in very close touch. We actually did some show for Spike. I think I wrote something for him. And then he came out to LA, which I was very much against. And I told him that. I'm like, dude, I don't think this is for you. Like, I'm just being honest with you. He asked my honest opinion. And, he was going through a lot. And we stayed in touch for years after that. And then we were in touch, I think, on Facebook, and we'd talk on the phone every now and again. And then, honestly, I don't know. I would like to think if I reached out to him, he would be happy to hear from me. Like, we never had like a fight. There was never like a, at least that he showed, there was never like him going, hey, fuck you, or anything like that. He was mad about the whole thing with me. And we had a lot of heart to hearts afterwards. And, I was very candid with how torn I was about it.
It's funny that you use mad as a verb. And I think that's a great way to describe the type of guy, is that you could just say, you could use mad as a verb, and people who have watched the show would understand what you mean. So my last question is, what moment sticks with you? Well, I'm sorry, my last question about the show. What moment sticks with you as this is the moment, I remember this is the thing that really sticks with me when somebody says to me, Joe Schmo Show, and your memory goes back, as it always does. What moment for you is the moment?
I mean, probably everybody's going to say the same thing. There's so many moments, but, obviously the reveal, I think, is the moment. Obviously, for me personally, when I saw that he chose not to vote me out, that was just, for me personally, that was a, not to get too serious about it, but that was an emotionally complicated moment for me, because I was so relieved that we had done it. And I was proud of Matt, and I was proud of the thing that we kind of accomplished with him. I was proud of the fact that we made him a hero, or he made himself a hero, that we put him in situation after situation, and the guy just nailed it. He showed his character as we thought he would. So selfishly, that moment that's the one that chokes me up the most, because that's the moment where he said, I choose friendship over money. And, but the reveal, I mean, it's so otherworldly, because hopefully some other people remember this. Before the reveal, I went to whatever producers were handling the kind of behind the scenes stuff. because we're up on these kind of risers. And I said, look, I know we can't have everybody on screen, but have the largest PAs that you have just off screen on either side, because if Matt punches me, like, he's gonna knock me out. And I'm okay getting punched once. I'm gonna fall, have him either try to catch me, but at least don't let him jump on me and beat me to death. Like, have somebody there ready to pull him off of me. And it should probably be more than one person, because this guy, who knows? I didn't think, if I had to bet money, I would bet he wasn't going to punch me. But I'm just like, where's the downside in having somebody there in case he decides to haul off and punch me? It's funny, when I think about that scene, I realize that how important it was for me to get that caveat out. Like, dude, I'm who I said I was, but yes, I'm an actor. It's like, it just, like, there was so much, I think I could speak for everyone, that there was so much concern for him that, like, I mean, I couldn't just go flippantly like, oh yeah, dude, I'm an actor. You know, it's like, I just couldn't do it. In the moment, I was just like, this guy was free falling out of an airplane without a parachute at that point. Like, I felt like, you know, who knows if it helped or not. You know, selfishly, it helped me because in that moment, I just wanted him to know, like, dude, you do know me. This is my name. This is who I am. But yeah, I'm an actor. And, you know, I would like to think that that was an important moment for him because we had bonded the most, you know, and, you know, comedically for me, the show, I didn't really get to have as much comedic fun. Maybe in hindsight, maybe I could have, but in the moment, my main focus was how do I get Matt to drive through this story, you know, rather than, because I didn't need to be, you know, I didn't, there was so many funny people around me. It was just like, if I'm in a room with Kristen Wiig or Hornsby or Lance Crawl, it's like, yeah, I'm going to have a couple of funny jokes and everything. We go out to dinner. It's like, yeah, I cracked those guys up or whatever, but come on. I mean, you want to watch them. And so in that moment, it really was a culmination of all my stress and fear. And I mean, that's got to be the moment. I mean, it's like, that was the thing everybody worked for. And we kind of somehow stumbled our way across the finish line. I got to tell you, when we were filming, the camera people were on shifts. I can't remember if they were 10-hour or 12 or whatever. They would get off work, and instead of usually what, you know, people fucking hop in their car and get the fuck out of there, a lot of people would go to the control room just to watch what was happening. And that, I remember walking in the control room and seeing like 3 or 4 like crew people, like still with their crew shit on, like that had been off work for 2 hours, standing there looking, and I'm like, wow, we may have something here. Because when you're in it, you're just like juggling chainsaws the whole time. It's hard to appreciate what the show might be. But when I go in there and see these, you know, kind of grizzled crew guys going, you know, eating popcorn and watching what's happening, I'm like, oh, this might actually be good.
We were lucky to get you in between trips to Ukraine. So what are you working on right now? And what can we look forward to seeing from you in the future?
Right now, I have a few shows that I'm developing. I'm work-wise, I've been hired to write a script about all of the things that have been going on in Ukraine since, you know, like 2004 till now, and how those kind of tie into American politics in a comedic and dramatic way. So that's been like a total surprise. It just kind of came out of nowhere and has been incredibly fulfilling. It's been great. I've been over to Ukraine a number of times this year. I'm going back in like a week. And that's been fantastic. And then I have a couple of other shows in development, one with Blake Anderson and Kyle from Workaholics, which I wrote on the first season of that. And that's like a half-hour single cam. And then I have another single cam with a very talented director, writer from Canada.
Well, you could always go back on your xylophone playing if as long as Jerry the bitch is not in the audience.
Yeah.
I see it. I was oh, look at that. I was gonna make a comment of it, but no.
Yeah, I keep them in the office so I can practice.
Yeah, well, just in case you're in a reality TV show and there's a skills competition again.
I forgot about that. That's right.
Well, thank you so much, BK, for joining us. There are going to be, I'm sure, hundreds of comments on this video, just asking questions and things like that. And I'm sure we'll have an opportunity just to follow up. Ultimately, the goal is it was a show that needed the very right time to happen. It's a show that could not be made today for many reasons, both good and bad. But I really appreciate how much everyone who I've talked to, and our next interview is going to be with J-Mo, who I know you're a big,
hilarious, man.
Yeah, big fan of, and Ralph Garman actually hooked that up. So that's going to be a nice interview for him. But ultimately, all the people who are watching this really do enjoy the show. They were friends with you even though, like, for myself watching the show, I felt like I was Matt. I tried to live my inner Matt as often as possible.
That's a good goal. And I can't, first of all, thank you for doing this. It's so like, it's so flattering to have someone have interest in a thing that you did. And this is a thing, look, I know certain things on the show are not going to age perfectly, like, especially some of the stuff we wrote in Joe Schmo too, which some of the stuff is so fucking hilarious. But it's something that I'm very proud of, and I feel very fortunate, to have been asked to do it, and it changed my life. It changed my career. It changed my perspective on things. I learned a ton, and I met all these incredibly talented people, and I can't tell you how much it taught me about like my career and dealing with stress and pressure. And everybody says this about like shows they worked on, but if you just go down the cast and crew list and see what some of these people are doing now, and even some of the people moved on to do other things, it was a tremendous convergence of talent. And I don't say that lightly, because I could just not say anything, but there's so many people that were so fucking great and so committed to this. And it really is a testament to Rhett and Paul and the production company, Stone Stanley, putting together like an awesome crew. And then, and Spike, like, this show is insane. The fact that they put it on the air and rolled the dice with it and invested in it before they knew if it was going to work is a pretty fucking bold move, and dude, to have people like it and still want to talk about it, it's pretty incredible. Nobody's calling me up to talk about, episode 15 of Gary Unmarried. You know what I mean? Like, so it's really flattering. You probably tell how emotional I get even now, like 17, 18 years later, thinking about it. Like, it was really, really impactful. And if Matt sees this, he should know he's deeply loved by everybody. he knows that. He's heard it from all of us, but like, and it must come through in the show. I may have to rewatch it now.
Thank you very much again, Brian Keith. It was phenomenal to catch up with you. It was phenomenal to talk about this great show, and look forward to seeing you in the future. And perhaps we, when we get to season 2, we bring you back to talk about all of the amazing moments in season 2.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.